Hello and welcome to Epiphytic cacti. Today let's talk about the species Lepismium lumbricoides. Now there are two forms of Lumbricoides. There's form Lumbricoides because there's always the standard form. I'm not exactly sure how to say this, but it's form aculeatum. I believe that we're looking at the standard form. And the reason why I believe it's a standard form is because the form aculeatum maintains like soft spines or soft bristles on it. If you've ever seen Ripsalis pilocarpa, it has like these soft bristles at the areoles, and I believe that's one of the defining differences here between the two different forms. So according to the IUCN-redlist.org site, the endangered status is of least concern and the population is stable. It grows at an elevation, the upper elevation of 1900 meters. It grows in Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So it has quite a spread in terms of where it naturally grows. And I'll also read the description in the New Cactus Lexicon by David Hunt. This one says that it has had other names, like I said. So other names that it's gone by was Cereus lumbricoides and Ripsalis lumbricoides. So the branch segments are slender. They will grow to be 3 to 4 meters long. So this is one of these plants that will grow very, very, very long branches. The one that we're looking at today is just a small rooted start, but do know that this will get very, very long. The branch segment width is about 6 millimeters. They are round. And it's funny that they make a distinction about this, but they're round whenever the plant is fully hydrated. If the plant is somewhat dehydrated, it does have like slightly angled, like the branch segments will be slightly angled looking. It doesn't really have like a chaining thing when it gets dehydrated. It actually just has very long ribs that sort of show when it gets dehydrated. I've seen it dehydrated. I have another one that never really rooted and just managed to get dehydrated, which I will say, it is kind of difficult to root these. One of the other interesting things about this one is that when we grow it indoors, we do tend to grow it in like a hanging basket as, you know, like a long hanging plant, but actually in nature, it tends to be creeping. So it tends to creep or like hang on, and it has a lot of aerial roots. So this one's not so bad, but I've seen this just completely covered with aerial roots down the side, and it'll use those to latch on and climb on trees. So it actually looks a whole lot more like a whole bunch of snakes climbing up tree branches, more like in nature. Not that it doesn't hang down as well, it does, but it tends to really kind of climb and cling onto things in nature. The aerials on juvenile, so younger stems, a lot of times will have 5 to 8 bristled spines, and they'll be 3 to 5 millimeters long. And when the branches mature, the growth tends to be spineless. They will actually fall off. And this is where they make the distinction for form aculeatum. So except in form aculeatum, that particular form will keep its spines, and they're really just like here at each areole, they'll really just kind of have a spray of like soft spines, and they don't really go away in the form aculeatum. The flower is rotate. It is 2 by 2.5 all the way up to 3.5 centimeters. It is said to be orange scented. The pericarpal is naked. The fruit is globose, which just means that it's rounded. It starts out red, but it will ripen to a deep purple, and it has purple pulp. So that is something that is very distinct about all of the Lepismium. If you were ever confused and you were like, do I have a Lepismium or do I have something else? All the fruit tends to be darker. So it tends to have like kind of a deep red fruit or like a deep purple. Some of them that I've seen just look black, to be honest. They can get so dark. This particular plant I picked up from Cacti and Hage a while ago. I don't know if it was 2 years ago or if it was just this past year. I don't quite remember. I kind of think that it was last year. And like I said, it's just a young little plant. So it's just got like a couple of little rooted branches going on down in there. I think there's like 5 rooted branches. It's starting to produce some new growth. And these will get, like I said, they will get very, very long. They're a bit thicker. they tend to be very turgid. So it's not like super pliable, where some of the Ripsalis, their branches are very pliable. This has a tendency to be kind of thick and stiff. If we get in here on the new growth, you can sort of see, and I might take a picture of that, but you can sort of see the little spines that are on this new growth. And so as this growth kind of matures, all those spines fall off. So you can see that this is really naked. But on the other form, all those little spines like that, they just don't fall off. So you can see another little growth that's pushing out. You can see some corking. So that tan marking that you see here on the branches, probably corking from a lot of sunlight. You can see all these aerial roots that were kind of creeping along here. You see them here as well. And then here we can take a look at the first flower on this. I will say that this branch that the flower formed on does not actually seem all that old. So it doesn't seem like it's a mature branch, but it's not like really old. It's not one of the original branches. It looks like it probably grew that branch last year. And so there you see the flower. It's quite a large flower. Like, in my opinion, it was kind of surprisingly large. I've seen some of the other flowers. So like Lepismium lawrenceanum has a very small flower. Lepismium hallucianum, form Rignellii, it has a flower that I would say is fairly comparable. It's probably a little bit smaller, but it's fairly comparable. You can also tell a very distinct thing that this is definitely not a Ripsalis just by the shape of the flower. So definitely not a Ripsalis. And what's funny is that Ripsalis lindberghiana tends to be highly confused with this plant for some reason, at least in the United States. But I will say this, that Lepismium, Lumbricoides, all of them have a flower that looks similar to this in form. Ripsalis flowers are very distinct, so you should very easily be able to tell the difference the moment that you see the flower. Oh, it's so pretty. So there are tints of green on the backs of these petals. There's quite a bit of green in this flower. I see like little tints of tan that happen to be like kind of a mid-striping on the petal. And one of the most shocking things to me about this flower when I saw it was that the stamen were actually kind of pink. And I was like, what? They're kind of a baby pink color. I've seen other ones where the sort of center of the flower looks like it's a little bit red. I wouldn't really say that's the case here. This doesn't really look like it's a little bit red. But I imagine if you put this in very high sunlight when it blooms, it can probably change the color. There's probably different clones that the flower might be a little bit more colorful. So I just kind of bear that in mind. But you can genuinely see kind of how big it is. And then the other absolutely fantastic thing about this is the scent. Oh my goodness. It smells so nice. So I would say that this one, it said that it was orange scented. And I will say that one of the kind of weird things is that citrus doesn't really grow where I live. Like I have had little citrus trees before, so I have smelled what the citrus blooms smell like. But I think that for anyone who's never smelled that, potentially you've smelled jasmine. And in this case, it's not even a true jasmine, but star jasmine has a very similar scent to this flower. Like sometimes some of them smell a little bit more like true jasmine, like your Sambac jasmine. I don't know that I think that is the case with this one. And like sometimes gardenia, those two, like Sambac jasmine and gardenia, have kind of a similar scent. Star jasmine, I would say, is a little bit sweeter, a little less pungent. It's just a softer, pleasant sort of scent. And that's like the common name for that plant. I don't know. I don't remember what the scientific name is for it. But a lot of times, like in the United States, you can find that star jasmine just in big box stores. I think some of the other Lumbricoides are scented, and they just have a real lovely scent like that. So there you go. Isn't that just beautiful? It's so beautiful. I absolutely love the ones that have like the epiphytic, the small flowering epiphytic cacti that have like these long round branches like this. They're just some of my absolute favorite. I love it. Sometimes one of the other real distinct things that you can do to differentiate between a Lepismium and a Rhipsalis is the ovary. The ovaries on Lepismium tend to look very different. This one, not so much, which I think was also kind of surprising. Chances are you'll see it in the fruit, though. And you'll see that the fruit, even though it said that it was rounded, it probably is just a tiny bit off round. It's something that I've noticed in all the Lepismium fruit, is that it tends to be not perfectly oval quite the same way that Rhipsalis is, and that is usually the same case for most of the flower ovaries, although it's not so apparent on this one. They tend to look a little bit sort of squarish. They're not like rounded shaped the way most of the Rhipsalis tend to be. Most, not all. There's always Rhipsalis pilocarpa, which is just kind of a little weirdo. I hope that you've enjoyed looking at Lepismium lumbricoides, form Lumbricoides with me. Thank you for watching, and happy cacti growing.